Welcome to today's edition of the Blazing Grace Show with Jason Graves and Mike Janung. Blazing Grace covers blazing issues with grace-filled answers. Here are your hosts, Jason and Mike.
And we're back here with the Blazing Grace Show. This is Jason Graves along with my good and faithful trusty co-host, Mike Janung. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Jason. How are you?
I am well, my friend. I'm very well, and I'm very excited to have not only a very interesting guest today, but somebody who's a veteran of the show, a guest hostess today. Welcome back, Julie Dozier.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back.
You're back in the saddle, huh?
Yeah, really.
It's good to have you. Well, let's get right to it. We have got a neat guest here today, something different. All the way from Europe, we've got Philip on the line from Vienna, Austria. Hello, Philip.
Hello, this is Philip speaking from Austria, which is kind of east from the U.S.
Yes, you are. You're like an eastern annex of the United States, right?
That's right.
Right. Okay.
And there's no kangaroos. Let me just make it clear
right.
front. You know, we have no kangaroos in Austria. They're in Australia. Sorry to say.
Okay. Important distinction. Well, we want to hear your story, Philip. So we'll get to that in just a second, and then we're going to talk about pornography and sexual addiction in Europe, and hear some facts about that and how you're reaching out all across the continent there to the east. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got involved in all this?
My story is very similar to, I think, many stories people have. Growing up, never having been taught on the issue of pornography, just kind of finding out through finding a porn magazine hanging around somewhere on the floor.
Right.
So many people we've talked to, same experience, and not knowing how to handle the situation. And basically going over into some software I found one day, which I used to put into my computer and found this is kind of interesting. Funny, I think it was the old days when you used to have these computers. Do you remember, Jason? Like these Texas Instruments computers,
yeah,
where you would feed with a cassette recorder 5 minutes you would spend to load a software, and it would kind of die on you. You would have to rewind.
Right.
And our parents had no idea. We had one of these software programs which we rather should not have had at home.
Right.
And that's kind of my entry into the whole thing,
Is that right? Wow. We had a Texas Instrument computer, and we used to love to play Tombstone on that thing. But I'll tell you what, it's amazing how technology has taken off so fast. I mean, I didn't necessarily get involved in pornography with or those early computers, but I know that a lot of people have. And then when the internet came, it just was like crack cocaine. So talk about where this stuff has taken you in your journey.
It started off with that was my first experience. I just kind of wanted to find out what is this all about. Just seeing these people are naked. Nobody's talked with me about that, so I started looking more into stuff. The thing was, I was a Christian at that time, and actually I became a Christian at that time, around that time, and I started going to pornography at that time as well, which sounds a bit schizophrenic, but I just kind of really got in and found more stuff, and I knew it was bad. Seriously, all the years, and that was 14 years I was involved, I always knew this is not fine. I know this is not okay with God, and every time I would look at stuff, I would fall on my knees after and say, God, what a pig I am, Hey, I'm this Christian youth leader here, and I'm teaching people about you, I'm exciting people for you. When I go home, I look at garbage, and I kept always repenting straight away. There was never more than an hour I left between sinning and actually asking God then to forgive me.
Right.
And just experiencing God's grace, kind of picking me up, say, hey, Phil, come on, continue, go with me,
Right.
I used to do some traveling in Europe for business, and boy, when I was trying to resist that stuff, I remember going to the airports, and there would be magazines with full frontal nudity right there, right in front of your face, right at kids' level. And I remember turning on the TV at night, and this was regular TV. It wasn't like cable or HBO like we've got here. And then at 8 and 9 o'clock at night, there would be nudity, full frontal nudity on your TV there. And has that situation gotten any worse? Or
actually, it's changed to the better, to be honest. It was massively in Austria, definitely, and not in Austria, but in Europe. I used to travel a lot, and the same experience, It wasn't a big issue. And when we had people come from the U.S. to Austria, Christians, they were shocked out of their minds seeing all the nudity on advertisement billboards. This was normal, and a lot of Austrians, even Christians, are just used to it. So I think a bigger issue was with a lot of Christian men was obviously the internet when it came out, and television, but it used to be full of nudity. Now, actually, it's changed quite a bit, I would say, for the last year and 2 years, that you'll see less and less pornography, especially in these typical channels you would see where there was pornography, and it's far less than ever before, which is very encouraging to see. There's a strong movement within Europe at the moment against kids porn.
Wow.
There are a lot of porn rings being, people being caught. Just a friend of mine, her kids were involved. She had no idea they were involved in kids porn as being filmed, and they had Interpol turn up at their doorstep, and a lot of exposure happening at the moment in Europe. Kids porn rings kind of coming to the light. So it's an interesting time at the moment, to be honest.
Right.
The media has a huge issue on that, and they condemn it very much when it comes to kids porn. However, when it comes to pornography, they're still very liberal towards that. But even there, people are slowly kind of rethinking things. You'll find it far less in television as ever before, which is really encouraging,
So what's changed? Because I remember going to Germany on a business trip, and there would be a soap, and there was in the afternoon they showed two men kissing. What is it that's bringing this change about?
It's difficult to say really what. I mean, I know within Austria there's a lot of people really getting together to pray, not specifically on that issue, but in general, and that are really trying to bring a change as well. Not only just praying, but literally also having a positive attitude, not being against the things, but trying to kind of positively influence, people, governments, teachers. In Europe, very much there used to be very much ghetto Christian being, if something bad would come out, you would send bad letters to the government and complain, and to the radio stations, But now people are kind of taking a different attitude and trying to want to really positively change things, not just be against something, but be for positive sexuality, positive things. And I think that's a big change we're seeing in Europe, definitely in the German-speaking world, where people are kind of starting to be more positive. And I think that has an influence, to be honest, yeah.
And Philip, I mean, it's certainly true that there is power in prayer. And I'm not sure how much you know about in the States of what's going on with the porn, but from your perspective, what do you see as the big difference between here in America and in Europe?
Well, definitely until recently it's been more publicly available, not talking about the internet because everybody has access to that, but, just in billboards and everywhere you go. I mean, I go to work every day, I see thousands of naked women every day. That's normal, This is, I think, very much different than in the U.S. It's more publicly available, easier, except now, obviously, by internet, which everyone has access to. I think this is very different. I think where we are still fairly far behind, and now talking about the church side of things, Christians, is that in the U.S. very much quite a few scandals have happened. Things are coming to the light at the moment.
Right.
People are more aware and are starting to talk. You have a lot of organizations that are getting this issue, taking a hold of this issue. That's not the case in Europe still.
Right, because
hardly any organizations.
Yeah, people aren't willing to necessarily look at it because I think in Europe, which has always sort of set the trend for America. I mean, we've always sort of gone where Europe has gone. There's been such a great desensitization over there. Not that there isn't happening here in the States. And in fact, it is happening here in the States. That I think that the reason why we are having these things come to light and that people are making a big deal about them is because we care about them and we're paying attention to them, and that we have a little bit of a window here where these things are still going to matter for a while. But then eventually, we will, like Europe, become desensitized to them as a culture. So it's really important now, wouldn't you say, that Philip, we take advantage as a nation and a culture of the opportunity to really look at these things and deal with them. And I'm just curious, following suit there along those lines, since we do follow Europe in many ways, what are some of the effects that you've seen in Europe as a result of what's happening with pornography and the prevalence of it? What are the effects that you've seen, and also how are you combating it? Because I know that you're doing some seminars and things like that, so maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I think it's not so different to the U.S. in that case that we see a lot of, especially men, but more and more women, obviously, kind of not being able to do what, God has planned for their life, And talking about myself, feeling, this big burden on my back, kind of, what a Christian am I? Yes, I'm excited about God. At the same time, I do this stuff, and it kind of doesn't, you're not free to really get out, and do stuff, you feel this burden thing, on your back.
Right.
And that's what we're experiencing a lot, with talking to people. There's this, we could do so much if people would get rid of porn in their life, and, have other worries, or have no worries at all. But it's kind of really holding people back. That's what I'm seeing. It's and people wanting to get out, but kind of not managing it. I think in Europe we have a specific problem. I think it's not much different in the U.S. It's very similar to Europe and the U.S. is that people are very isolated. There's a lot of ego. God bless me, mine.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, people are dying because of lack of relationships, and I think that's a big issue actually for Europe, and also I guess in the US, that people are just kind of searching for love,
Right.
acceptance, and they're looking in the places that are not going to fill them. It's self-sex. It's not going to make people happy, really.
Right.
And that's why we wanted to actually bring in, not just be against porn, but actually bring in positive sexuality. So that's
Right.
important for us in the seminar to have, a lot of fun. We've had quite a few seminars where we just had a lot of laugh. People were laughing their heads off.
Amen.
And a few minutes later, people would be dead silent.
Right.
We talk about anecdotes. I talk about my time I used to spend in the paper containers looking for porn magazines.
Right.
Only to find out that nobody throws them into a paper basket, paper or garbage can. You say in the US, I think.
Right.
Nobody throws these things away. So
Yeah, porn addicts aren't exactly the most earth-friendly folks on the planet.
Yeah,
okay?
to be honest, I just remember one case. I was living in a village of 4,000 people.
Uh-huh.
Half of the people, about 2,000, lived in a huge building complex where I used to live. And, it was weekend. I would not be able to get any garbage. So I'd just get into the paper container and start, acting as if I had lost something in the paper container,
Uh-huh.
Just only to find out that I was not able to find anything in there.
Wow.
Got even more frustrated not being able to find porn stuff.
Right.
So this is the craziness people, things you do,
Right,
the
right.
stupid things, and I would be passionate. I'm a passionate guy, so if I do something garbage, I'll do it full of passion and do it fully,
Right.
perfectionist, and
Well,
get into trouble.
Listen, if you're just tuning in, thanks for listening to the Blazing Gray Show. We're meeting with Philip, who's from Austria. And Philip, you can actually contact him at info@nakedfacts.com. And in fact, you can also reach him at the Blazing Grace Europe site, info@blazinggrace.de. And so your organization has a website as well, Philip. You can see them online at nakedfacts, FACTS.co.uk. And in a second here, I want to hear more about these seminars that you're doing and sort of what folks can expect if they have you come to their church or organization. But Mike, it looks like you've got kind of a question brewing over there.
Yeah, I was curious, Phil, when you're speaking to people, what kind of responses are you getting from not only the men but also the wives?
At the moment, we're just seeing that this is really starting up through the internet website that we have, the nakedfacts.co.uk, and we have a similar one in German, which is called www.nacktetatsachen.at. We're seeing slowly wives contacting us. This is slowly beginning. At the seminars, most of the time, we have more talks with men and actually women that are into porn. Just recently, we had a survey in a church we spoke at, and we were very surprised to find out that half of the church would actually, the girls would be into masturbation, and about a third of the girls were actually honest enough to say, well, honest enough, it was an anonymous survey, but they stated that a third of them were into pornography within the last half a year. So this is what we're seeing at the moment, and I'm fairly surprised, actually, and also for me as a man, that this is not an issue so much only for men, but also more and more so actually for women.
And Philip, I'm seeing that here also. It's just more and more, and I don't know what it's like over there, but I'm seeing that it's more of the younger age. What are you seeing over there as far as the females?
I mean, definitely, the industry have found a niche in advertisement, and that is advertising and trying to get money in it, and that is targeting women, So more and more we're actually seeing men portrayed naked or in a special position. Less so women, less and less than in the past, actually, funny enough. So there's a new area, basically, the industry is targeting to reach out to these people, yeah. But, our heart is really to reach these people, Christian or not. For us, it's just an issue, the whole pornography. It's just killing people, It's not like we're against pornography, but it's just a thing, it kills love. It makes for men, it kills, the relationship to their wives, but also the other way around, more and more so. That's why we actually, started up a year ago. This is a fairly young ministry we have. We only started a year ago, and basically triggered through one of my best friends where his wife said, hey, I'm out. If you do this once more, look into porn, I'm away. And that kind of, freaked him, and he fell back into pornography. And his wife doesn't know until today, and that really triggered a lot in our hearts to say, hey, we want to challenge not only Austria, but also the German-speaking part of Europe, and UK and Europe as a whole, to really talk about things, talk openly, bring things to the light, and say, hey, start talking about these things. 80% of the power is broken, of the porn power, if people start talking. So this is what we're really trying to target at, and we're speaking at churches, we at seminars, we're open to speak anywhere, it doesn't have to be Christian, to be honest,
Are the churches pretty open to this?
At the moment, yes. We had in Austria, we had in Vienna, which is the capital of Austria, we phoned, I'd say about a third of all pastors in Vienna, and said, were you interested in the seminar? And they said, very much so. So this is what we did basically a year ago, well, even less than a year ago, is invite people from churches, to come, and we had 35 organizations from Vienna join and back up this whole thing, which is very interesting, because we had groups working together that never ever worked together, from a different denominational backgrounds, that fully supported it, and we had 250 people turn up, which is for Austrian standards, which is a very small country with a very low percentage of Christians. People say it's way below 0.5%. This is a lot for a topic like this, and the encouraging thing was we saw most of the people that came were leaders. There was hardly anybody there that was not in some kind of leadership.
Wow.
That was a positive thing. Sad thing was it showed that those who were involved, which are not in leadership, not that leadership is not involved into porn, right. There's no doubt about it, it's just as well in there, but we saw there was a big taboo, a shame for people just to turn up a seminar. Every leader that came was, open and said, well, I'm a leader, kind of, I need to find out about this. Now that has triggered off 2 more seminars we're doing in different larger towns in Austria. There are 2 more thinking about doing it, but it's still a very, very interesting topic. The reactions are, people are very scared to do it, to do a seminar, inviting us, not because they don't know us, but more like because it's such a critical issue, and a lot of people are thinking about wanting to do something, but saying, well, give us time. We need time. Some people just don't say, give us time. They don't contact us anymore, but we know from other people that they're really thinking of doing it, but are kind of scared. And we're finding out a lot of people in leadership or into porn, it'll be, just talking around to people, it's
Phil,
50% of people.
Let me ask you, when men and women are coming to you, what kind of answers are you providing them? What are you telling them to do with your relationship with the Lord, and what are you telling them to do on how to overcome this problem?
I tell them to read Road to Grace.
Amen.
Yeah. Actually, it's being translated into German, Mike. Do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
Mike's actually translating it into German, which is great, because we desperately need a good book in German. There's a lot of garbage around when it comes to books in German on the issue. So this is great that it's coming out. No, seriously, obviously, we do. A lot of stuff that's in the book. Very much this looking to God, and when talking with God about your sexuality, you can talk with God about everything. That's a great. You can say, God, I'm lusting. I know it's not okay. You can talk with God. You can mention the word penis. He's not going to be shocked. He invented it. He invented it. Believe it or not, I know this is hard to believe, but God actually did that. Yeah. He's cool. He's a cool guy, really. Totally.
He is. He understands masturbation, and he understands pornography, and those words won't make him blush.
Right. You don't even have to say the M word. You can actually say masturbation.
Right.
You can,
And 2 of us in the studio just said it. Mike, would you like to give it a try?
Oh,
Masturbation.
Okay, now everybody check your pulse.
I just
Okay.
closed my ears.
All right. Nobody died. We said the word, and everybody's okay. Okay. Good. So you're pointing them to resources. You're talking about prayer. So you're trying to engage them spiritually. Anything else?
I mean, relationship and love is a key thing to everything. You know.
Right.
Why are people so involved? You know, they're looking for love. They're looking for acceptance. You know,
Mm-hmm.
fill their heart. You know, there is an eager thing to look into that. You know.
Right.
So this is a big thing just for singles. You know, we're encouraging, especially the young girls, more and more finding out they're into pornography and masturbation. You know, get into relationships with, not with men,
Right.
just get into relationships with
Friends.
other friends. You know, with friends, you know, men or women, but just have friends. You know, meet up with people. Don't be on your own. You know,
Right.
Talk with people honestly. Start talking in your house groups, in your Bible study groups. Talk about the issue. You know.
Yeah, be real, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We had Tammy Maltby on the show a while back, and she did a good job of just saying, hey, you know what, I realized that I needed to be real or die. Because she was so ashamed of her life and of herself that she wasn't willing to be real. But she was feeling suicidal. And so the only thing that she could do was to face the hard thing in her life, and that was to be real with people or die. So listen,
but that's the thing, you know, you're going to die. If you keep with this issue on your own, like I used to do, I did not talk with people, you're just going to die. And I died, you know, spiritually. You know, inside, I died. I'm the only person worldwide that has a porn issue. And I could not talk with anybody, and I did talk to people. It's like everybody else has this experience. People were not able to handle the situation.
Yeah, the Bible's clear.
How am I doing?
The Bible's clear. It says, you know, no temptation has seized you except that which is common to man. Okay, and so people do deal with it. You're not the only one. And plus, what we're talking about here with death, we're not trying to blow it out of proportion here, folks. The Bible says lust leads to sin, and sin leads to, when it's full blown, death. All right. So listen, we need to wrap up here, Philip, but one last question. I noticed on your website, nakedfacts.co.uk, that you talk about the impact on youth. In just 30 seconds, can you share with us what you're seeing in terms of the effects on youth? Because I know in America, teens are the biggest consumers of porn out there.
Well, what we're seeing, and then also we had a teacher just recently contacting us, is that porn on the mobile is a huge topic coming up at the moment.
Yeah.
And actually in Germany, they now, a school director actually said he's going to do contracts with each parent that their kids are not allowed to take any mobile phones into the class. And that was majorly criticized.
Right.
But funny enough, after time, people are very positive towards that.
Right.
They're saying, and even the students are saying, this is great.
Wow.
We don't want to look at the stuff, you know, in the end of the day. But that's a big issue coming up at the moment.
Yeah.
With, you know, the youth wanting to see porn, and you're out. You know, we've just heard recently from a colleague, you know, if you don't know who the porn actress is on the mobile, you're out. You know, you're not part of the class anymore.
Right.
And we need to challenge that. Just talk openly with our kids. You know, my kids are 3 and 6 years old. No, they're not. They're 4 and 6 years old. Sorry to correct. And we openly talk about that issue.
Yeah.
And they know how things are, you know, called. They know that we're involved in seminars. You know, we talk to them in a childlike way.
Right. Amen. I love how Mike does that with his kids. He says, look, pornography is simply people without their clothes on. If you ever see it, I want you to come to me and tell me first. Right. So listen, Philip, it's been a blessing to have you on, brother. So listen, anytime you want to come back, it's an open door, all right?
Yeah, it's a long walk.
Open door, long walk.
I'd rather phone in, yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a show about porn and sexual addiction in Europe, and we're glad to be tackling this subject. Listen, did you know that we're on the air in South Africa? Funny to note that the initials for sexual addiction in South Africa are both SA, by the way. 103 FM in Pretoria, South Africa. Impact Radio. In fact, you can see them online at impactradio.co. Something or other, I don't know. You can just Google it. But the bottom line is that they're taking it to that nation, and we're very grateful for them. So Rodney and the gang, blessings on you.
That's Wednesday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight.
In South Africa. And listen, do you want to be on the Blazing Grace show? We're going to do a live call-in show in June. So if you want to come on as a caller, we'll get you set up. Just call us or email mike@blazinggrace.org. We'll see you next week when we tune in with Dr. Lawrence Westreich.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Blazing Grace Show. We trust today's broadcast helps bring you closer to God and to what God desires for your life. Blazing Grace is a listener-supported mission intended to help listeners around the world. Your support is vital in keeping that mission alive. We ask you to prayerfully consider sending a tax-deductible gift to Blazing Grace. It would be gratefully appreciated. You can send your monetary gift to Blazing Grace, P.O. Box 62521, Colorado Springs, Colorado 80962-2521. That's Blazing Grace, P.O. Box 62521, Colorado Springs, Colorado 80962-2521. Want to learn more about Blazing Grace? Find us on the internet at www.blazinggrace.org. That's www.blazinggrace.org/radio.htm. On that page, you'll find a downloadable copy of this show, or you can visit oneplace.com under Ministries. Look for Blazing Grace Radio. If you want help resolving a sexual addiction, you can reach Jason Graves toll-free by dialing 877-590-SOUL. That's 877-590-7685. In addition to Jason Graves counseling, Mike Genung has a book out. Mike Genung's book, The Road to Grace, Finding True Freedom from the Bondage of Sexual Addiction, is available at www.roadtograce.com. The book guides those who struggle with sexual addiction to a place of finding the abundant life of Christ. There are also sections for wives and recovery for marriage. Desire for a specific subject to be covered on Blazing Grace? Tell Mike Genung what you want covered. You can email Mike at blazinggrace.org. We look forward to sharing more blazing issues and grace-filled answers next time. Thanks once again for listening, and may God shine His grace upon you.